We're live. Hello and good afternoon and welcome to Refresh. A time to connect, to be inspired, learn something, and ultimately feel a bit better for this time spent together. And that's what Generation W is all about. Feeling a bit better, inspired, refreshed, because we are together. I have to tell you, I voted yesterday. I don't know if that was true outside. Was that everywhere in the country? But here in Florida, if you had the opportunity, I hope you did, because I'm really proud of our Generation W friend, Michelle Cook. She is the new sheriff of Clay County. This is huge. And I'm so proud of the work that we have done with Michelle, who spearheaded with Generation W a couple of years ago, if you happen to be with us, as we built off the work off another great author and Generation W attendee, J. Newton Small. She did the research on the positive impact that women have in law enforcement. And God knows there's so many conversations around law enforcement, but we do know that women have the ability to engage in conversations, to de-escalate tense situations. They bring a sensibility that happens to even out. And Michelle is brilliant, and she will be such a tremendous leader for her county. Congratulations to Clay County for voting, I believe, their first woman sheriff ever for the region, and absolutely for the nation. She will show us what model law enforcement can look like. And I can say that we all know that having a diverse group of voices in the room continues to be proven to have a positive effect, right? Decision-making is better when voices are more diverse. That's why I am still celebrating yesterday's 100th anniversary of the right for women to vote. Yay! The power of sorry about that. The power of diverse voices at the table, in the room, on the Senate floor, in Congress, in our boardrooms, and everywhere else is in our collective best interest. The story of the suffragist movement is a fraught one in our nation, however. And I'm happy to recount that it was Tennessee, and I'm saying this for you, Stacy, this is Stacy Ellison's home state, was the 37th and sealing ratification to make this the 19th Amendment. And it passed by one vote. It was a 24-year-old state representative who heeded his mother's last-minute note to say, be a good boy. Wouldn't it be great if that's all we needed to say? Be a good boy. We owe it to ourselves to become more familiar, however, with the struggle for women's rights, because the language of the amendment technically did not say all women have the right to vote. What it spoke to was not denying citizens the right to vote by any state on account of sex. It's a very, very, very big distinction, because we need to own that in that language and that in that practice, the drive to ratify the 19th Amendment, the rights of Black Americans, Black women, were sacrificed. It also set aside the right of Native Americans and Asian American women. The racist law and practices that kept them from the ballot box with decades to undo. And, you know, candidly, we're all seeing and experiencing the remnants of that to this day. It speaks to why we must vote and why we're celebrating the increasing presence and voice of women of color across the political and social spectrum. But remember, please, please, let's vote. Let's make our voices heard, because voting is about voice. And today we have gathered a powerhouse group of women who have decided to channel their voice and their passionate pursuits into business. They are amazing entrepreneurs who are in varying stages of development of their businesses, created to answer the needs of consumers, the world, and even beyond. I am so impressed, as you will be too, to have their work so impactful in addressing some of the pressing social needs of our society today. So I am so joyful in welcoming Deepa Gandhi, Elizabeth Lewis, Brianna Kilcullen, and Christy Alexander. Now, I didn't give you the names of their companies because each one of them are going to tell us about their entrepreneur origin story, which I think we went over the other day. It is so interesting. Make sure you have your questions. They're going to share with us the drive for success, not the fear of failure, what motivates them, and what does success really look like for them. Are you ready? Because I know that I am. So Deepa, This is so fantastic. I'm so happy you're here. We're going to start with you, Deepa Gandhi, founder of Dagny Dover. If you do not have one of these bags, you have 10 because they're spectacular. But you're a finance person. Tell us about your journey.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thanks for having me, Donna, and the entire Gen W crew. Always love being here. Always gives like positive vibes, right? Just like all good all around, which is great. Nice day on a rainy Wednesday, at least in New York, it's a rainy Wednesday. So I'm Deepa Gandhi, as Donna mentioned, and I'm one of the founders of Dagny Dover. And my story started not thinking that I would start a handbag and accessories brand. I graduated college and moved to New York and got a finance job. I worked at Lehman Brothers on the trading floor, which was quite the experience. It was also 2007. So I was there for literally like the peak of the market and then the entire crash in 2008. But in that first year at Lehman, I was really unhappy, right? I really realized that, you know, I was making a good amount of money for somebody fresh out of college, but there was nothing about my job that I enjoyed. I didn't like the people. I didn't like the actual work. Just because I was good at finance and very analytical doesn't mean that I had to sit in an investment bank and work on a trading floor and be in what was at that time, to be frank, a very toxic environment. And so I really thought about, what do I love? And for my entire life, I had always wanted to work in the retail or fashion industry. I really love, I love the creativity that goes into it. But, you know, when you're in college and when you're at your first job, it's really hard as a finance person to say, how do I find a role in this industry that is so creative and so inspiring that is not an accounting role? And so I went into finance rather than going into retail and fashion, which I was passionate about. But luckily I was in New York. You're surrounded by people that work in all companies and in all industries. And I made friends with people that actually had interesting jobs within the industry, and you still needed people to do inventory forecasting, business analytics, all of that. So I was able to, through my network, find my way to Club Monaco, which is a Ralph Lauren brand and much larger now than it was then. It was actually, most people didn't really know the brand in the US at the time. And I was able to take on a role on the merchandising and planning team where I was able to really learn, how do you bring product to market? How do you think about the buying strategy? And then also based on the adjacencies within the organization for my role, I learned a lot about supply chain management and the finance of retail. And I really fell in love with supply chain operations, which sounds super nerdy, but is definitely like my jam. It was a really great way for me to say, how can I be that finance girl in a retail world? And I eventually decided to go to business school. So I went to Wharton, and I went to Wharton with an idea built around a kind of B2B platform for small to mid-sized businesses that had a lot to do with the work that I had done internally at Club Monaco, and I'd done some external consulting with a couple other retailers that were on the smaller side. Essentially people that had left Club Monaco and said, hey, remember that amazing process and tool that you built for us there? Can you come and build it for my new company? And so I was like, oh, there's probably an opportunity there. Instead, I get to Wharton, this great idea, and one of my very good friends, Melissa, Melissa Shin, now she's Melissa Nash, was working on this handbag idea. And she'd worked at Coach for many years prior to business school. And in her last stint there, she was interfacing directly with customers, which shockingly doesn't happen as often as you would hope in the retail and fashion world. The people making the decisions are not in the stores. She luckily was, and she was listening to people talking about, my handbag doesn't work for me. Do you have something that can fit a laptop, that can fit my, phone, or can prevent my keys from, scratching up my laptop or a water bottle spilling and ruining everything in my bag? And she was like, yeah, we're Coach, but unfortunately we don't have that for you. And every store all the way through Heathrow Terminal 5, which is where she was during this role, you had Burberry and Hermes and everybody surrounding you, and they all had the same answer. And so to her, there was like an aha moment, like there has to be something here. So she got to business school, also had, all of these amazing badass business women around her who had the same problems. And she thought that there was an idea. What was really great was we were friends prior to business school. And then when I got there, we did a focus group together, and I called her that night. And I was like, you know what, scratch my idea. This sounds so much better. And at the same time, she had found and met Jessie Dover, who's the Dover of Dagny Dover. So she is the wonderful creative mind behind our products. She's our designer and our chief brand officer. And really what she has been able to build is very impressive. And together, the three of us said, let's build a better brand. So we built Dagny Dover, which is meant for all of the amazing, you know, organized people out there, giving you products that are not just organized, but also beautiful. And on top of everything else, the three of us, and I think for this group, it's really important, is we also came together because our values were aligned around not just selling better handbags at a better price point direct to consumer. We actually came together because we wanted to build a better organization between all of our collective experiences at larger companies, whether in finance or in retail or other industries. You know, it was as much as it was, you know, 10 to 15 years ago, it was a different environment, and we thought that we could do better, right? Especially for women, especially for young women, right? And say, how can we build a great culture and a great community, and also be real and listen to our customers, right? Because I think for a long time, brands didn't listen to their customers. They just pushed, and for us, we wanted to pull from them. So that's our origin story. We've been in business for 8 years now. It's very exciting. Some days it feels like we launched yesterday, and some days it feels like it's been 20 years, because so everybody here can agree.
Yes, yes, totally. It ages you and yet exhilarates you. You have a little video which we're going to show, and then we're going to go into the next story. And also, perfect. I'm going to share some really interesting news for you. Go ahead, Sherry Levin. You want to
At Dagny Dover, we design bags for your real-life hustle. We believe that good design is everything, and that small, thoughtful details make a huge difference. We partner with the world's most skilled bag makers to bring our organized, cool, and intuitively designed bags to life. From our materials to our construction to each and every style, everything is chosen and created for peak performance. You guys to feel like today is the day, and wherever you're going, you've got this, and we've got you.
That is so cool, and it's a commercial, right? And I love it, but it's because it's our friend, right? You just shared with us the idea, where it came from, and then all of a sudden, here it is. I have been on the subway in New York, and I've seen women independently have these bags, and I want to go talk to them. I want to tell you, that's my friend, it's her bag, do you like it? It's like really funny, but it's that stake we can all have in each other, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But let me just say hello to some of our guests, and Elizabeth, you're up next. By the way, I just got this note, my heart is beating so fast. Michelle Cook, Sheriff Michelle Cook of Clay County is listening. Everybody, let's give her a cheer. Woo! Woo! Oh my gosh, I'm just so proud of her. Hello to Allie Watkins, Rosalie, Erin Caldwell has 4 Dagny bags. Susan Remmer has 3. And of course, the W team loves them so much. There you go. All right, Elizabeth Lewis, your turn. Tell us about you and your origin story. And
yes, hello.
Questions. So we're going to have to, I don't want to cut anyone short, but I just want to try to get it concise. Here we go.
All right, great. So thank you so much, Donna and the Gen W team, for having me here. It is just such a gift and a pleasure to be here with all of you. So I'm Elizabeth. I am the founder and CEO of Brand Style and Bloom, and I help my clients to discover and activate their 3 words for success using personal branding and personal styling as tools. So I think we have an image here of a client transformation that I did, and sort of what this looks like. Oh, I'll talk about that in 1 second. But one example of a client transformation I did, her 3 words were fierce, dynamic, and playful. Oh, here she is, right here. So Stacy. And so you can kind of see where she started and then where she ended up. And so we experimented with different colors, bold colors, cuts, prints, to help her to express those 3 words, which you can see at the top. So the reason that I started doing this is that I love helping my clients grow in confidence and achieve their dreams in life. And your personal brand and your personal style, they really are such powerful tools to help you reach your dreams. And I kind of learned that from an early age, not so much on the personal branding front, but from the fashion front. So the picture that was just shown, I used to dress up in my mom's clothes and high heels. So here I'm wearing her high heels at our house in Alabama. And for me, I was very shy, and this was such a great form of self-expression for me because it wasn't all about what I was saying and the words that I was too shy to say, but I could express myself through my clothing, and just kind of set the stage there for people to start getting to know me. So this love of fashion continued, and I thought I wanted to be a clothing designer. So when I went to undergrad at Washington University in St. Louis, I took a class in fashion design, and I actually found that I didn't really enjoy the practice of making the clothes, nor was I really that good at it. I don't know, it didn't really come to me. It was something with the patterns and the muslins and all that stuff, and it just didn't really come to me naturally. I still had that love of clothing, but not making the clothes. And I really thought the only career someone could have in fashion was as a designer or maybe as a model. So I went with some other loves of mine, some secondary loves, love of the written word, love of marketing. So I had marketing roles at Penguin Random House, which brought me to New York in publishing. And then after I got my MBA, I also worked at Colgate-Palmolive in brand management, working on brands such as Optic White, Palmolive Dish Liquid, and Irish Spring Body Wash. But that love of fashion continued, and I also began to find that through working on these brands and products, packaging was so important. And you can have a great product, but if it doesn't really stand out on shelf with its packaging, or if people don't know why it's special, then it's hard for that product to be successful. And that same philosophy can apply to people. So that's why I believe so strongly in finding that success story and using personal branding and personal styling as tools. So I started my business a year ago. I cannot believe it's been that long. It feels like yesterday. But when I think as an entrepreneur of so much that I've learned, it's just been at warp speed since that time a year ago. And in addition to working with private clients, I've worked with companies such as Booz Allen Hamilton, Everyday Health Group, and Dress for Success. And also just through this time of Corona, it has been really tough as a small business owner. But I've also begun to see another need out there for a membership community based on a concept that I coined called style wellness. So we're all looking for ways to feel good right now, right? And I think a lot of the time when people think of wellness, they think of nutrition, so the food that we eat. They think of exercise, but your style is actually something that's been proven to help influence the way that you feel and the clothes that you wear. And so style wellness is all about how you can feel healthier, happier, and more excited about your future. And so I'm launching a membership community around this soon. I'm super, super excited. And what's being shown now are some tips from an ebook that I wrote that share 5 tips you can use today, starting right away. So if you'd like this ebook, just send me a DM on Instagram at brand_style_bloom, just saying I want one, and I will send one to you. So thank you.
All right, listen, I'm sending it right now. If you can get it to me before the end of the show. But you know, it's so true. Style does improve how you feel. And yet I stick to my gym shorts and t-shirt every day. It does make me feel a certain way, right? I'm missing my Apple Rose cosmetics and all these, and my bag, I mean, the whole thing. All right, we're gonna come back. We're gonna come back. That's fantastic, Elizabeth. We're all so excited and eager to engage with you in this, right?
Thank you.
Brianna, you're up next, and we're gonna start out with your video. How about that?
Every day we have the opportunity to take simple and purposeful actions. From picking up a piece of trash on the street, to telling someone good job, to purchasing a towel that is better for all people on the planet. The key is to act. When I realized there wasn't a towel on the market that fit my quality and sustainability standards, I decided to do something about it and tell the story of the people and the places along the way. Which brought me to Weifang, China, where we partnered with a factory to create a one-of-a-kind towel that exists nowhere else on the planet. Our towel is more absorbent, faster drying, more sustainable, and one of the only towels using hemp in the world. We teamed up with Green Story. By choosing the Enact towel, you'll save at least 526 days of drinking water. It's a purchase that you can feel good about.
Amazing, an amazing journey, Brianna, and I know you are much earlier in your journey, although Elizabeth is very early on as well. So you both are early stage entrepreneurs. Tell us more about where you're at, because the product and how you got there is fascinating.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me today. So
I did not expect to be here. My dad, how I was raised, was you get a great corporate job and you get a 401k and stock options, and you build your way onto that corporate ladder until it's time to retire, and then you are covered and you have that safety net. So that was really how I was raised. And so to go into entrepreneurship, or to think that like I could have my own company, it was such a foreign concept. But the more time that I spent working in corporate, so I started at Under Armour and then worked my way to Columbia Sportswear and ran their sustainability program for Prana out in California, was that I felt like I didn't, was compromising my personal brand and my values working in those atmospheres. And I just felt like there was something more than for my personal self than to get a certain title and a certain paycheck. And I would say that I had an experience when I was working in El Salvador in a factory in 2014. So I was, I think, maybe 24, 23, and I was working on the factory floor, and I just saw this huge disconnect between all of these Under Armour goods that were being made to be sold in the Dick's Sporting Goods and Nordstrom's, and then seeing how hard people were working and what they were being paid, and just that this entirely massive global supply chain of where all of the clothes we're wearing right now come from, and feeling like there was this social and environmental disconnect. So I carried that with me through corporate, wondering like, how can I, advocate for a change within the textile industry? But then also I started to feel like in order to get there, there were so many compromises I would have to make to climb that corporate ladder. And so I kind of around the election, 2016 election happened. And I remember waking up afterwards and I was like, did that happen? Like, where are we going? What's the future look like? And really what stood out to me was that if I wanted to see a change, it had to come from me. It couldn't come from anyone else or me hoping someone else was going to execute the vision I had, or the businesses that I kind of had, that I wanted to see, I wanted to buy from. And I truly believe that business is the fastest way to alleviate poverty is through the creation of a job. And so it was just this really cool opportunity that started leading me to believe that I could do that. And with Enact, I only wanted to create a product if I knew it was better than what was on the market, similar to Deepa. Like, I wasn't just going to create something. I wanted to, solve problems and make people's life more efficient. And I fell in love with hemp. For most people, if you don't know, the textile industry is the second largest, most harmful industry on the planet environmentally. And so for me, I feel like a lot of what 2020 has been and what we're going through is just dress rehearsal for the climate crisis. And so it was really important to me to develop a product that used Earth's natural resources, that was better for people and our skin, and that was going to tell the story of this industry, so we could educate people. And that's what I've been doing. And I wanted to build a movement within the brand so that people could be inspired to take simple acts to create impact. And we were funded on Kickstarter last year. And then March was when we were going to market. And the day of our huge launch party was the day that I feel like the world hit pause. And so I, as like a first time, startup business owner, was like, oh, this wasn't in any business plan. No one told me that this was could happen. But I do think the best advice I've been getting has been like, this is when businesses are built. This is when businesses and leaders who have vision can pivot and can define what that future looks like. So we're still really fresh and new and figuring it all out. But I'm just grateful to at least be able to, create my own financial freedom and be able to help others through the power of business. So
it's powerful. It is just it's so incredibly powerful. Okay, just a couple of notes here. You're gonna love this. Christy, you're up, but one sec. I love Joy. Joy comes often. Will you post a list of their products and where and how we can purchase them? Names, etc., please. right? The power of community, women supporting other women, although I'm sure there's men on here and they will do the same, but I love that, right? We're not even finished telling all of our stories. It's ready, okay, how do I jump in? And I just love that. All right, Christy Alexander.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me, Donna. I enjoy being a part of Gen W. I really missed the conference this year, being in person, but I know we'll be back together soon. But my name is Christy Alexander. I'm the founder and chief big heart of Apple Rose Beauty, which is a luxury organic skincare line formulated with sensitive skin beauties in mind. We also have a big heart mission to support the fight to end human trafficking. And my story started years ago when I was back in Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean, which is where I'm from. So back when I was 15 years old in chemistry class, we analyzed face powder, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to start a cosmetics company one day. And so I was one of those planner kids. I wrote a life plan then that I was going to start, I was going to work in business for a while and then start my company. But of course, life happened as it does when you get older. And so I ended up I actually started off in chemical engineering, but then transitioned when I got a scholarship to the US for college and did physics for undergrad and then industrial engineering for grad school.
Of course. Of course. I just, you're scaring some of us away who want to start our own business. Like, we don't have to be majoring in physics, do we?
No, not at all.
It helps. Okay, go ahead.
Yes. And so I worked in engineering and business and management for about 10.5 years, was on the fast track, getting promoted every couple of years. I actually loved the company I worked for and the values of the company. And I've actually incorporated a lot of that into my company now. But I worked in that environment for 10.5 years, was getting promoted every couple of years. And I was up for another promotion that would have taken me to the C-suite route. And I just thought, this is not what I want to do. I really don't want to retire here. And so I like traveling. I like being immersed in different cultures. I like helping people. So I thought, won't it be cool if I just traveled the world for a year? So yes, that's it.
Very cool.
So I went on an 11-month service trip, and these are some of the photos from that, to 11 countries around the world. We did 5 countries in Central America, 4 in Central America, 5 in Southeast Asia, and 2 in Africa. And in each country that I went to, we volunteered with the locals. And when I was in Thailand was when I actually volunteered with an organization that helped rescue women from human trafficking. And they also employed the women and housed them. So I actually lived with them. I held their babies. And that's when it became something that was real to me. It was no longer a statistic that was out there. Human trafficking became real to me. And I realized that this could have been me had I faced different circumstances, had I been born in a different place. It even happens here in the US. And it was also around the time with the Bring Back Our Girls movement. I don't know if you guys remember that, with the girls in Nigeria who were abducted by the Boko Haram, and they were abducted from physics class. And I did physics for undergrad, and the Boko Haram were threatening to sell them into human trafficking. So it all just kind of came to a head for me, and I realized that I had to do something to help end this. And then the dream and the vision I had from back when I was 15 years old kind of came back to me with a much bigger purpose. And so I actually named my company after 2 victims of human trafficking I met. Their names were Apple and Rose. And so it's called Apple Rose Beauty. And our mission is to employ survivors and donate to organizations that rescue and rehabilitate them. I also struggled with adult acne for a long time. And I also have super sensitive skin. So all of our products are formulated with sensitive skin in mind. We have very light, clean fragrances, and they work for all skin types.
Right, we're all clamoring for that right now. Matter of fact, Stacy just wrote and says, I love her facial cleanser and moisturizer. Now I feel like I'm one of those 30-minute infomercials. Okay, and what did you say? And yes, it really worked great. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Each one of your stories is so beautiful in its own right. And yet, as this composite work of art, I'm looking at my screen, I see all of your beautiful, it's just an incredible capture of passion and purpose and intelligence and desire and ambition. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring. We're going to talk further, but of course, I'm going to say hello to a couple of people. because they're going to talk with us too. So I wanted to say hi to Trisha. Oh my God, Susan Renners. Susan Renners is here from Seattle. Well, actually she's in Silicon Valley. And Nadia, Matt Kilcullen, I have a feeling you might know him. Brianna, probably somebody related. Marcia Zimmerman from Dagny, Lisa Tepper, Lisa Shallot is back, yay! Kelly, Joanne Cohn, Gwen, Ava Grazel, who just came out with some really interesting work. I just wrote her a note and said I love it. Dorothy Schultz, Deb Levy, our positivity person. She's here to give us, I'm feeling it, David Emmanuel. So people who have even been on the show are coming back to support everybody. Kriya, Kalissa, it's all great. Cheryl, and of course, one of the greatest basketball players and athletes in the history of our time, Annie Myers Drysdale from California is on. Very cool. Very, very cool. I don't know who's all on Facebook, but send us who you are. We want to say hello. Here's our first, there's so many questions, by the way, that have piled up. But it's funny, someone else made this observation. Many of you have combined your skill sets, right? Passions to find your business. I love what you said, Deepa. You said, your question was simple. What do I love? And you took your love, or at least your experience in finance and your love of fashion, and you got there. Engineer, okay, engineer, love of fashion, and then also your experience with the world. All of you, right, Elizabeth and as well as Brianna, found a dissatisfaction with the route they were on, the path you had taken. So my first question is, how out of the box do you have to be? And I'm going to follow that up with, how much courage do you have to have? Anybody just?
Well, I definitely think it takes a lot of courage to be an entrepreneur. It's not for the faint of heart at all. But I think the bigger question is, what would happen if you don't do it? You know, would you always have that, voice in the back of your head of what if? So I think I think it's actually better to try it and fail than actually not try at all. Life is short, and I think it's important to do what we were placed on this earth to do. And a lot of times those little voices in our heads and those little nudges are taking us in that direction of why we're here.
Right.
And I know, for me, some of my friends would always wonder where I was going to end up because, I didn't, have an idea. I didn't really know about, entrepreneurship. But I would kind of get in trouble all the time, working in corporate, because I wanted to know what every department was doing and how it was connected. And so I feel like it wasn't, for me, there was courage, but it was also, I kept getting in trouble because everyone's like, just mind what you have. I'm like, no, but I want to know how that relates to sales and how our customer service team is doing that and what the vision is and how we're going to make this happen. And they're like, that's not your problem. Don't worry about it. So I feel like it wasn't it was courage, but it was also I almost got forced out because it was it's so clear you need to do your own thing because you want to know all the pieces of the pie. And so I share that because I didn't know that meant running my own thing because I had to figure that out on my own.
Yeah. In terms of how out of the box that you have to be, you don't have to come up with the craziest idea out there. Sometimes it's just taking two existing ideas and then combining them in a new, interesting way. I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is just, are you passionate about it? And are there some customers out there who would be passionate about it too? Because you want people to buy the product. But you have to test it and do new things and try it out, and then you'll figure it out. But it doesn't have to be some crazy off-the-wall idea.
You're courageous, Deepa. You are. Yeah.
I'm something. No, I think it takes a lot of, I think more than courage, I think it actually takes, if I think about where the rest of you guys on this panel are, I think to be at that point, it is a lot of courage, and it's a lot of saying I'm going to do this. And I think then to get through it, I've learned that's where the grit and resilience really comes in, right? The ability to just be I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to survive. Right. I think the important point I often like to make on grit and resilience, it's not just I have the power to push through and get to the other side. It's no, I have the power to digest what's happening and continuously evolve and work through and maintain that courage and that strength through the process. But I think one thing I find interesting about all of us on this panel is, yes, we might not have started where we actually now have ended up, but everybody has a really strong foundation from their corporate experiences. And I think that that does make you a better entrepreneur in certain ways, because you've had that experience, and it also allows you to fall back on something. I think when we were starting Dagny, I had many friends who were like, you are courageously like throwing yourself into this business, and how are you doing that without worries of this and that? And I had a ton of support from my family and my, then boyfriend, now husband. So I will say that helps a lot to have, your team around you. And my mom's on here, and she was very supportive as well.
Hey, Mom.
And continues to be, yes. But I think the big thing actually was like, a couple friends were just like, how are you doing it? Like, we know you are I care about X, Y, and Z. I care about success. I care about for a while I was working my way up the corporate ladder and all of that. And then Brianna, I totally get you. I was that person who was like, hey, like, what about this? What about that? Wait, I'm seeing this process here that I think could be efficient. I know I'm not part of this team, but like, I would love to help, and it just naturally happens. But I think the thing that I realized, and when people would ask me, was I was like, the thing is, I built enough of a resume up, and business school was part of that, where I was able to say, if this doesn't work, I can go back and do something else, and I know that I'm going to be okay. And at bare minimum, and I still feel this to today, at bare minimum, I will have added to that resume, because 6 months of being an entrepreneur to me is like 5 years of a career, right? And like, it's amazing how like the dividends that pay off of every month and every year that you actually work on your own business, because you have to be scrappy and you have to learn so much. So I think it's all additive, and it's all accretive value to your long-term career. So whether it's successful or not, is what matters, I think, is like, I've always said, like, remembering what the longer term purpose and goal is of what you're doing, and, all of that, but not to get ahead of ourselves and other things we want to talk about today.
No, but that's really important. And it made me think of you, Christy, because when I first met you, had a little table at the downtown not-for-profit center, and now you're in Macy's.
Yep. And it's interesting what both Deepa and Brianna said, because I actually never realized this about entrepreneurs. You wear many hats, of course, but I was actually fortunate to be in a position in my corporate career where I had my hands in everything, and it was allowed. So that was a fortunate thing. And I actually started off in a management training program. So they actually trained in every single department, from removing staples with one of the accounting clerks all day to going out with a driver at 4 o'clock in the morning. And learning about how they talk and all the walkie-talkies, through the whole gamut of it, and learning all the different aspects of a business. And I think that allows you to be scrappy and to realize that you might have to play a lot of different roles, especially when you're just starting out, but be okay with that and realize that it's all part of the journey and all part of building the business to the point where you can actually hire people to do those roles.
It makes me just think about the power of network learning and behaving, right? So, and it's not even just about being in business, like understanding how a school system works really might help me understand how to help my kid better, as opposed to thinking linearly, right? It's a new way to kind of approach the world, and you guys have developed your brains, because as entrepreneurs, we need to do that. Let me say hello to Nikki Glover, also a great entrepreneur, Holly Mitchell, which many of us do know, Mary Lee Kingsley. Mary Lee had a great idea that she is still trying to get out there, that marries food, her love of food, with the sports world. And I'm so glad that she's joining us. She does have a question for someone who'd like to answer. How did you plan financially to make the leap? Because that can really be a hindrance to a lot of people. And especially, I know that, Deepa, you talk about not taking any public money, right? You haven't taken any kind of venture money at all. But what was your thinking on that? Anybody? I know, Elizabeth, you've self-funded so far.
Yes.
Correct. And when I was preparing to leave, I stored up about 1 to 2 years of savings, because someone very wise told me that it takes about 2 years for your business to really kind of take off, because the idea that you start with isn't necessarily the idea that you finish with. So just very practically, that's what I did.
And similar to Elizabeth, I did that as well. I actually saved up 3 years, because I heard 3 years, so weird. But one of the things I did was really focus on making decisions early on for my business that were in the long-term interest of my business. And I didn't want to be really worried about getting income right away to support my life. And so that's one of the main reasons I kind of put together a nest, and then anything that came in from the business, I put it right back in. And so I lived on my savings for about 1.5 years before taking any money out at all. And then it was probably another year before I could support myself fully from the business.
Okay, so let me say hello to everybody. We are here at Refresh, time to lift our spirits, with an amazing group of entrepreneurs who are sharing their stories, ideas, motivations, hopes, dreams, whatever else we ask them. They're just so willing. We have a really great question. This is from a young girl. She's 15. Her name is Anna Welsh. She's a Philadelphia entrepreneur that grew her passion for sewing into a sustainable handmade bag company. She did this because she's been following Dagny Dover for closely. So let's hear from Anna Welsh.
Hello, my name is Anna Welsh, founder and CEO of Little Bags Big Impact, a sustainable handbag company on a mission to nurture the planet and the next generation. My question is, what advice could you give to young entrepreneurs in regards to scaling their companies?
Okay. Wow, isn't that cool? Very cool, right? That was so cool.
Amazing.
Okay.
Really cool.
Anybody want to jump in on a scale? Deepa, I know you're involved with that. Christy, you're involved with that. Brianna, you're on the front end of like working on your scale. I've seen you showed us all yesterday, your showroom. I mean, what do we call it?
Yeah,
right?
The warehouse.
Your warehouse, exactly.
I mean, this might tie in like funding and also, just that early stage, but, we did Kickstarter because that allowed us to pre-finance our first round of inventory. So that was a way to get hard orders from people, know that we were going, to be able to have customers, but also have enough money to finance without having to take out outside capital. So that was, something that I like crowdsourcing. I know I Fund Women is doing a lot of work in that area, and there's a lot of initiatives and grants that are coming out to help kickstart and seeing just the massive disparity of available capital versus entrepreneurs, that are looking to do that or wanting to start their business. But that was our experience, or that was my personal experience and recommendation.
I think for me,
Yes, I would add that one.
Go ahead, Deep. I was interested to hear what you would say, being the handbag.
Okay, well, it's handbags, which is a complex supply chain process that many of you on this call probably know more about than you ever thought you would. But what I would say is, first of all, definitely echo Brianna, where we did a pre-sale when we first launched, because part of it is you want a couple things, right? You want the funding that comes from a Kickstarter or a pre-sale or anything like that, but you also want proof of concept, right? You want to know that there are people out there that are willing to pay full price for the product that you are actually bringing into the world. So I think that is extremely important. And the thing that I would actually tie alongside that is building and this is like not related to scaling, but I think it's very important to scaling as you go through the process, is building a close relationship with your customer, like an actual personal one, right? Having a one-on-one dialogue with them so that as you go through the ups and downs of scaling, they will be there with you, right? Because you're going to have times where you potentially do a pre-sale or do a Kickstarter and your product's delayed, especially in today's environment, everything's delayed. Or you might, have a product defect issue, right? And if you can actually reach out to your customers on an individual basis and say, hey, this is what happened. And alongside just building that relationship, being honest and transparent with your customer, which I think the customer appreciates and values more today than ever before, that goes a long way, right? So it's not just about how do I scale, it's how do I scale in a way that I can actually bring my customers along with me, because at the end of the day, you want to build long-term customer lifetime value. And how do you build long-term customer lifetime value? You make sure that your first customers remain your most loyal and, kind of like there for you always customers, and you continuously acquire new customers like that. So that's a piece on that side. And from a supply chain operational perspective, I would say always think 1 to 5 steps ahead of where you are today. So today you might say, I am making, hand sewing these bags in my, house. with the tools I have available. But if this hits this next scale, the next level, and I need to now find a local manufacturer, start building those relationships, tell them the story. And early on, it's really hard to convince manufacturers and vendors that work with larger companies to come and work with you. But what we said was we pitched all of these vendors and manufacturers like they were investors. We told them our story. We told them what we were building. We told them where in the market we were trying to go, and brought them on board and told them, listen, my orders are going to be small to start, but if we work together and this works, we'll stay with you. So that's the other important thing, is build relationship with great vendors and manufacturers and partners who take a chance on you in the beginning. But then if you explode and everything is amazing, stick with them because they were there for you when you needed them, and don't just go to the next person who's like, well, I'll beat their price by this much. And you'll be surprised how vendors will continue to work with you if you're, growing and scaling on costing and on different things that you might need, payment terms, whatnot, so that they can continue to work with you. And meet the people that work there. Don't just say, oh, you're the best at this, so I'm just going to work with you. Meet the people, get to know them, because personal relationships are unparalleled. And I think everybody here probably has experiences where it's actually the personal relationship has, gotten you through tough times. And I can say that it's the personal relationship we have with all of our partners, especially when it comes to our supply chain, that have helped us when there's been insane things that could have totally made everything unravel.
Crazy. Totally. So now you guys were good enough to come together and put together some tactical tips for our community, and let's take a look at them now. You touched on a bunch of them, but let's just go through them. 1, need a vision. Hello. Simple, right? Each one of you thought about something you wanted to address, right, in the universe that you thought you could provide a value for, right, Christy?
Yeah, and I think the important thing about that vision is realizing that for some time you may be the only one that sees it. And even though you may have support from your family and friends, really the long-term vision it's often personal. And so realizing that and understanding that you don't have to try to prove the vision to everyone, and you would often sometimes get support even though people don't see or understand the whole vision, and that's okay.
That is okay. To find your why. All of you have done that beautifully. Brianna, in particular, your focus on, somebody said, how do you save so much water by buying a towel, right?
Yeah, so so for the water for the towel, hemp uses little to no water to grow. So we're comparing that to conventional cotton, and that's how we're able to save water, is during the manufacturing process. But then also because of our towel and the absorbency and the weave construction, you don't have to wash it as often either. So there's like 2 different water saving places. And I just love the quote, the Mark Twain quote, that the 2 most important days are the day you're born and the day you find out why. And I just think that that resonates with me, and I feel like right now in 2020, like everyone's kind of looking for a why to why everything's happening. And, my takeaway has just been, how do you look and see what your passions and pursuits are? What are problems and gaps in society, and how do you align that? And, leave this planet a little better than you found it. And that's kind of how I define it and use it.
That's awesome. Create a business plan. And by the way, in my notes, we talked about a live plan, correct? Or didn't we talk about a live plan? Who wants to talk about creating a business plan? Who did that? Elizabeth, did you do that?
I think we all talked about it, but I can touch on that as well. And just speaking to live plan, I think that's something Brianna and I have both used and have found very helpful. I think a lot of the time when people are starting a business, they think that they only need to create a business plan if they're pitching to investors, because of course investors want to know your vision, your numbers, all of those things. I didn't pitch to any investors, but I did create a business plan, because for me, it just helped to put everything on paper, my goals, the numbers I wanted to reach, how I was going to do my marketing, my why, my target market. Because if you don't put those things on paper and just kind of define them, things just kind of float in the air, and you kind of wake up one day with your business and you're not where you want to be or where you thought you would be. So it's really important to just have a plan, even if you don't necessarily show it to anyone.
Great. And of course, you've all talked about having grit. You all wouldn't be sitting in this seat on this program today if you didn't have grit and resilience, right? You got to be able to dig in. This is not for the faint of heart. Is that what I heard you say yesterday?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Grit
Yeah.
is.
Okay. All right. I mean, that's important. So let me just say, this is from Lisa Tupper, by the way, and this is a little of value to you and for all of the entrepreneurs or wannabes watching on Facebook, that she's in line with an organization. First of all, lots of kudos for you from her, which is awesome. And she said, check out CEO. It's an organization that supports female entrepreneurs, growing businesses that support the UN sustainability goals. So I'm not sure who has heard of it or not, but very helpful. I know she's very passionate about her work there. Lisa Shallot had a really great question for you as well. What did you learn? What was one of the first lessons you learned in this process?
Don't rush a product launch. Like probably the biggest and loudest lesson I ever learned was, and we always talk about it, is don't rush a product launch. Like whether it's, for us, it's physical product, right? Or, for different people, it might be, an update to an app or whatever those things might be. But I think for us, it was interesting. We brought in an angel round, like a pre-seed round of funding. We were really excited. And for the first time we had people saying, oh, like you had this timeline, you had this, you had that. And we were like, okay, we have to meet these expectations that we set for these people that we brought in. And also customers are asking for this like new product, all of these things. And so we rushed. And then we had handles breaking off of bags. And it was like, oh man, the worst experience is to be sitting in a distribution center with cartons and cartons of bags where you're just like tearing handles off and like quality checking on your own. And it was a real lesson. And since then, if it takes 12 months to launch something, great. If it takes 24 months, that's fine too. And now we have literally like, if we're launching a new collection, that is a 24-month process, like full stop, like not even a question, right? To do everything that we need to do it. And I think the big thing, the lesson from that isn't just don't launch a product when you're rushing. The other thing is know that whether you're in a marathon or a sprint. So, right, if you're thinking, and it goes back to, I think, Christy, you were talking about this, right? Knowing your long-term goal, knowing where you want to be. And if you know that, you're able to align accordingly. So like an extra 3 months to make sure something, you feel a little more confident in that product is probably worth it in the long run, right? And entrepreneurship and building a business is generally a marathon. And then the other piece of that is make sure you're picking investors and partners that are aligned with you so that you don't feel like you have to, rush a product launch. And I know it's kind of like there's a lot of lessons built into that experience, but it was a really important one. And we're happy it happened really early and we were able to recover from it pretty unscathed, but it was a good lesson. It was an important lesson.
And that's anybody else? Quick lesson. We don't have much time left. And there's so much to talk about.
Oh, go ahead, Christy.
Oh, I was just going to say one of the biggest lessons I learned was bringing your customers along in the journey. And so, my background is in engineering, so marketing was completely new to me. And I spent a lot of time on product development and not enough on marketing when I first started. But my first 100 customers taught me so much about marketing and so much about what was important to them, the value that the product really brought to them, and really who we were, what our value proposition was. And so really listening to your customers and bringing them along in the journey, because they actually help you be better, because they want you to be a better brand as well for them to serve their needs. And so I think Deepa talked about that one-to-one communication, but that communication with customers is super important.
Great. Okay, so Elizabeth, did you want to add one more thing?
Yes, I was just quickly going to say, don't think that your business is going to be an instant success when you first start out. Some businesses are, and that's wonderful, but don't put those super high expectations on yourself. I remember when I first started and kind of before I made the jump, I was just sharing my idea with people. And so many said, oh my gosh, I'm going to buy it immediately, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then I would email them, with all the information, and I would kind of hear crickets, right? And at first I was really hurt by that. But then I realized, you got to romance people a little bit. You have to really kind of tie you know, what their specific problem is to your solution. And you can't just come to them straight away, you know, with the offer and with the service and with the price. And
Right.
so that's not something I would have learned though if I hadn't have gone through that experience. So just give yourself time to learn and refine.
I think that's really important. There's so many more questions. I mean, honestly, I would love a part 2 for all of us here because I think it's important. Because people want to know, do you have business tools? Yes, right? What have you learned about the pandemic, customer relationships, all these things? So maybe we might want to do that. We'll see, right? We'll see how everyone's schedules are. I do want to just thank all of you. We have lots of relationships here. First of all, Generation W launched a program called Launch Her. Actually, Christy, you were part of that early on, and also Deepa, where we found women who had companies that were just emerging. We wanted to put them in our lobby. We wanted to provide promotional and marketing weight behind them. We want to feature them on our website. We don't do it for any remuneration other than it is the right thing to do for women to support other women, to support good businesses, to help our friends in our Generation W community and family. I know Nikki Glover's on the phone. She launched a company called Courageous Spoon, and she worked with us on some events for her catering company. This year we have Enact towels as gifts. And we always work with Deepa on that. Both Elizabeth and Deepa will be delivering workshops for Generation W this year, which will be absolutely spectacular. Krista, we have to figure out what our what next is with you because we love it. So we want to make sure, I think in the Zoom link, we put everybody's information. Stacy, let's figure out how we can get it on Facebook as well, so everyone can follow you as we will. We'll put you on our website as well. We really believe the power of community. You spoke about relationships, right? It's about our customers, yes. It's about our vendors, yes. But it's about our community and our friends and supporting the vision that each of you have in rolling out your businesses, really to make the world a better place, right? To make us feel better. So with that, we don't really have any more time for questions. If we could, if people have urgent questions, if you don't mind, we'd forward them to you and then you can answer them if that is okay. I want to thank you all. Here are some of the thoughts that I wrote down for the day from you, which I loved. As I said before, Deepa, you said, what do I love? It's as simple as that. Like people go, what's my passion? Well, I don't know what my passion is. What do you love? Simple. You know, Elizabeth, you talked about, you know, style improves how you feel. I love that. Very simple. Yes, it does. When I take a step back, yes. And if I want to feel better in this time, I absolutely do. Let me think about that a little more. I think we all can. And you have a lot to bring to the table there. Oh my God, Brianna, when you said, oh, here it is. You said that if you wanted to see change in the world, you knew it had to come from you. Powerful words. Powerful words, right? If you want to be involved in sustainability, then you can create a sustainable product that is needed, but would be much better for the environment. We love that. And then Christy, of course, your travels, you know, infusing yourself with people of the world, seeing a need, seeing human trafficking and saying, you know, but by the grace, it could be me. And then stepping in and naming your product Apple Rose. It's just absolutely fantastic. So thank you to all of you. Thank you for all of you who are coming. Save the date, September 11th. Sherry keeps telling me we have a video. We don't have time today, Sherry, but you know what? We can post it. People can check it. It's 9 years of Generation W. Please put it on your calendar. Better yet, register. Yes, we're going to be delivering it virtually, but you know what I love? Virtual delivery, real impact. We bring all the magic. We have great speakers, great content. The idea of us coming together now needed more than ever. Please. The more the merrier this year. That's what makes it so exciting, right? And for next week, we are so happy to welcome the inimitable Jeannie Diffendorfer. She was a longtime senior executive at Verizon. She just got voted as the top 100 women in boards and businesses. And she's going to talk, I'll tell you what, she is, you'll see, she has this incredible way of communicating and sharing her ideas. And she wants to talk about where do you turn to for solace in difficult times? She has her favorites, and she turns to time and time again, and that try to keep her grounded. So she'll focus on the present and the fight and the inner urge to measure her worth by being busy. I love that. Honestly, love that. So next Wednesday, Eastern Time, thank you, everyone. Of course, thank you to the entire Generation W team, Sherry, our producer, Stacy, Jamie, Kasha, Christina, Tara, Mariah, and Ruth. To all of you for joining us. And let me just say this, in this time of, when we're all trying to do more, we would love for you to consider spending some of your, we appreciate your time, but if you'd like to make a donation to help continue this and the work that we do, we do have a text to give, text to support, which we would really appreciate. By all means, stay in touch. If you don't already, subscribe to our newsletter, genwnow.com, and follow our social. And remember, all of us, together we are powerful. Together we are not alone. And I love to end with, we can be healthier. Because what our friends at the Mayo, Dr. Stephanie and Jackie, always remind us, right? It takes all of us to help each other be healthier, but we also have to make sure to give ourselves grace as well. And my friend Lisa reminded me that this morning. Thank you, Lisa. Save the date, Generation W. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody.